Hello, children. It's Grandma Carla, and we are here to read chapter 18 of Abby Lost at Sea. Abby came out of her sleep feeling troubled. For a moment, she could not remember where she was, and then she remembered. She was in Olani's house. Luke and Captain Chandler were on their way to take back the ship. Suddenly, she heard Olani's voice outside the hut, speaking with authority. "You go! Be gone!" "By thunder, you'll learn respect," an angry voice boomed beyond the open door of the hut. "It's Jackal." When his ornery voice receded as he stormed off with his men, Abby moved slowly through the dark grass hut. She tried desperately to remember where the table and the chairs were. Reaching the doorway, she peeked out and saw 6 men marching away. They were heading toward the beach. One of them carried a torch. When they disappeared behind a small sand dune, Abby hurried out to Olani, who stood watching them, her arms folded across her massive chest. "Olani, that was Jackal." Abby's braid had come loose hours before. Her thick curly hair stuck out in all directions. Olani turned to her, and the scowl on her face was transformed to gentleness. "Our little Wahine has Hawaiian hair," she said, tenderly laying a hand on Abby's curls. Abby smiled at Olani and her friends. "I know he is the jackal that takes ship and treats you bad," Olani said, "but the men go for meet him with Nui, big surprise. His time is near." Abby swallowed hard. "But how do we know the captain's surprise is ready for him? Shouldn't we slow him down?" Olani looked thoughtful as one of her dark-haired friends, Kaylani, reached out and touched Abby's curls. "Nani hair, that means pretty hair," she explained to Abby. Then Kalani turned to the rest of her friends. "Abby be right. We can slow those bad men down." "We go," Olani commanded. Abby and the 4 women hurried through the village and onto the sand dune, following Jackal and his men. Abby's stomach churned with dread. She didn't want to face that devil again. As they reached the top of the rise, Olani broke into a run. Abby's mouth dropped open at the speed with which the large woman moved. Her companions followed suit, and Abby tried to keep up. The men were headed to a skiff which had been beached near Olani's fishing nets. "Jackal!" Olani's voice carried over the sand, stopping the men in their tracks. Abby and the women were only 15 feet from the men, and the man holding the torch was Spandler, Jackal's right-hand man. "Ignore them," she heard him mutter. "I want me rum and a good sleep. I'm sick of Hawaiians." But Jackal turned toward Olani, his shirt sleeves tight where the muscles of his arm bulged. He grinned wickedly as he waited for her to catch up. "No, it's been a while since I taught such a sassy woman a lesson." Olani stood tall in her muumuu, her long white hair trailing off her shoulders. She strode toward him. "Me think you mo better stay here. That itty-bitty boat not yours for use." Jackal only sneered, his black eyes glittering with eagerness. "Try to stop me, big Wahine." For a moment, the only noise besides the crashing waves was the indrawn breath of Olani's friends, who were shocked by the disrespect shown to their royal chiefess. Abby came running up in time to see Olani catch Jackal off guard as she backhanded him. His head flew back at the impact, almost knocking him down. Abby could see by the light of Spandler's torch a look of amazed anger spreading across Jackal's contorted features. "Uh-oh," she whispered. Jackal came up swinging, but Olani ducked. With her head lowered, she rammed Jackal in the stomach. Her momentum and weight shot him backward onto the sand. Abby's eyes went wide as she watched Olani get the best of Jackal. Suddenly, Abby gave a terrified yelp as someone latched onto her hair from behind. "Gotcha, you little cur," Spandler said as he dropped the torch and grabbed her. He began dragging her off toward the skiff. Abby tried to put up a fight, but she was no match. "Olani!" she wailed. The chiefess left the fallen Jackal as she rushed to Abby's aid, tackling Spandler from behind. His knees buckled and he fell hard, letting go of Abby's hair. One of Alani's friends had seated herself on top of Jackal, who was cussing up a storm, but it was no use. He couldn't budge the 300-pound woman off his back. Abby grinned as she watched Alani's friend wave his pistol at him. The other 4 sailors looked on in distress. None of them had ever considered mutiny before Jackal had shown up, and none of them had ever struck a woman before. They were unwilling to start now, but 2 of them approached the women seated on Jackal and tried to lift her off. They weren't getting very far, and neither were the 2 men who tried to pry Alani and other women off Spangler. Abby rubbed her sore head where Spangler had yanked her hair. She frantically thought of what to do next. Spying the fishing net just 20 feet away, she ran over and picked up yards of it in her thin arms. With all her strength, she began dragging it toward Spangler. Kalani darted toward the fishing hut and picked up a long object that shone white in the moonlight. Abby watched her sneak up behind the 2 men bothering her friends who sat on top of Spangler. Whack! Crack! She struck each man on the back of the head. They toppled over. When she noticed Abby struggling with her load, she hurried over and helped her drag the heavy net to Spangler. The 2 women rose from his back, and he flipped over, ready to rise. "Me no think you should," said the woman, brandishing her club. Spangler sank back down on the sand in dismay, and the 3 Wahine threw the net over him and his 2 fallen friends. Then Kalani went over to help her friend who sat on Jackal. The Wahine needed little help, for she had a firm grip on Jackal's pistol and was brandishing it at the 2 sailors who were trying to come to his aid. "Hey, bring the big mouth over here," shouted Alani, and Kalani went over with her club and helped herd Jackal and his 2 men to the net. "Get," she ordered, raising the net on one end. When Jackal's expression showed he wasn't going to obey, the other Wahine raised the pistol and took aim at him. With open mouth and utter disbelief on his face, Jackal obeyed. The net was tossed over him and his friends, and then Alani and the 3 other Hawaiian women sat down on each corner. "They think 2 times before they insult Alani again," crowed Kalani. Abby's mouth tugged at the corners. She had never seen such a funny sight in her life. She began to giggle, and the Hawaiian women joined in. "Ah, such a wonderful feeling of friendship," Abby thought. "I love these Hawaiian people. They are the best I've ever met." "Kalani, what is that club thing you were using?" Abby asked. Kalani held up her long object in the moonlight. "This be the jawbone of a big dolphin. We used it to ram his enemy the shark, and so do we." He used it to ram his enemy the shark, and so do we. The women chuckled again, while Jackal and his men squirmed under their net enclosure. "Go to sleep, little men," Alani crooned. "You will need it, I think. Soon Kimo will come for you." "I wonder how Luke is doing," Abby said to no one in particular. Alani glanced at her and smiled. "If he be half as brave as you, Nani Hare, he make fine warrior." As Abby sat on the net in the moonlight and soft Kalua sand, she thought Alani might just be right. At any rate, it wasn't polite to disagree with the royal chiefess. That was a mistake Jackal would probably not make again. Then Kalani began to hum softly. Alani said, "Nani Hare, go get for us the drum gourd by the hut." Abby rose to retrieve the large gourd she remembered seeing there. Now, while the women waited for sunrise, Kalani began to beat the drum, and Alani joined in with the chant. Abby listened to the beautiful Hawaiian words that floated from the women's lips. The drum beat pulsed like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of Hawaii, Abby realized. And when she began to teach her an ancient chant of victory, Abby's own heart swelled with joy. "These people are easy to love," she mused. "Their aloha spirit makes Hawaii feel like home." So that's the end of chapter 18 of Abby Lost at Sea. I wonder how the boat boys are faring on the boat.